Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board. Tonight is Tuesday, October 20th, 2020. It's 6:34 p.m. And if you want to do the roll call, no, the pledge, I'm sorry.
Pick someone to do the pledge, Lynn.
John did it last time. Pete.
All right, let's stand up. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. One God,
Indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. Thank you.
I got my name mixed up.
Why do we all start saying it when it's supposed to be one person? I forgot
I'm
it.
new to this. I didn't know that.
That's
I
okay.
didn't.
Why, Dan, are you an atheist?
No.
Well, we're a little relaxed here. That's okay. All right, now we can do roll call.
Hey, Trustee Marks,
Present.
Trustee Wiegand,
Present.
Trustee LaRue,
Here.
Trustee Everson,
Here.
Treasurer Johnson,
Here.
Secretary is here, and Supervisor Durant.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Kangas, our legal counsel Roger Zappa is here, our fire chief Dan Shanahan is here, and our superintendent of public works Lenny Bodinas is here, and committee members present. We have Mike Springer here from Planning, Recreation, and Roads, and our sheriff is here tonight, Greg Zybert also.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Any emails, Randy, from anybody?
I do not have any public comment on emails, and unless any Mike or Reg want to make public comment, we have no one online for that.
Hey, anybody want to do any public comment? Looks like Reg is off doing something. Nothing? Okay, that skips number 3 also then. Up to the consent agenda, which tonight includes approval of the regular meeting minutes of October 6th, 2020, and special meeting minutes of October 9th. Bills payable in the amount of $179,811.68. We have a budget amendment number 2020-09 that Randy can read. And Sheriff's activity report from September and the Fire Department activity report from September. Charter communications regarding channel lineup, financial statement from September, as well as the treasurer's report.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay. Randy? You wanna-
Okay, I'll present to the board here Budget Amendment 2020-09. The highlight of that is to authorize is requested reclassify revenues and expenditures in the fire fund. Ambulance revenue will increase by $30,000, offset by decrease in tax revenue by $20,000, result in a net increase of revenue of $10,000. Administration expenses increased related to increased ambulance runs, billing, and intercept fees. Firefighting increased are due to EMS part-time hours and resulting supplies higher than anticipated. The offset of $60,000 from the fire marshal department reflects one less person not hired.
Okay, then we need a roll call.
Trustee Marks,
Yes.
Trustee LaRue,
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Trustee Everson,
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
Clerk Rattari is yes, and Supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, thank you. And unless we have any changes that anybody'd like to make to the agenda, we need a motion to accept it.
So moved to accept the agenda as presented.
Or
Roll call, please.
Treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee Marks,
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Trustee Everson,
yes.
Trustee LaRue,
Yes.
Supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. I'm not aware of any conflicts of interest unless someone has any with the agenda tonight. So we're down to staff reports. Steve, we keep losing everybody on the screen every time they move. We've got a regular report and questions for you or answers from you, and then first responder hazard pay premium program update.
Yeah, correct. Good evening. Yeah, it's just briefly, since Sheriff Zybert is here, I did email Captain Kangas this afternoon. We were on a pretty bad accident yesterday, and I just wanted to, which we never do, say thank you to the deputies that were out there yesterday. I did send out an email late this afternoon, but they were just a big help. And sometimes you never get to say, hey, just thanks a lot. You know, just their information before we got there. You know, they're on scene, what was happening. They painted a nice picture for us before we got there, and the help on scene too. So I just wanted to say something we never get around to doing, but today I did email Captain Kangs and since you were here, I thought, well, I'll let you know also.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'll let them
Not a
know.
lot. Yeah, thank you. They were a big help. Not a lot going on. They were pretty much, you know, staying in-house with training, nothing too much outside. We do have a few people that work out at the prison for the state. Weren't able to attend anything. They've sort of on a leave of absence with us. A few people from work who are recommending that they don't respond to calls. So we're down a little bit staff-wise at the present time. Nothing really. We had a, mutual aid structure fire with Chocolate Township. We had a small fire, Chocolate Township and Marquette City assisted with us. We had a large pallet fire behind UP Kubota's, personal injury. We did have our wilderness rescue up Hogsback. I don't know if anybody had heard about that one, but that one did take us quite a while. And you know how in previous months we were talking about pre-planning the high risk, low frequency events. Well, that was one of them. That was not one of them that we had not had a chance to pre-plan, but we are now well versed in Hogsback. Yes, let's briefly talk about some of the grants. We will talk in a minute about the first responder hazard pay premium program. There's a few grants, if you can see in my report, that quite a few, I guess, 8 or 9 that we have applied for. We were denied the 2019 AFG grant, but now it goes into another pool that are strictly for volunteer and combination departments. So we're not out of the running yet. And we did finally receive our flashover trainer. Whenever we do have an open house, it's going to be nice for the firefighters too. It shows you can visually see how a flashover occurs. Captain Gregridge requested that through the Michigan Firefighter Training Council. And we were one of the few in the state of Michigan that were awarded some type of training equipment, and it's pretty neat. We did receive from Harbor Freight a donation, so we purchased some headlamps, so that happened to be right after Hogback, and a floor jack. And Lowe's gave us a donation recently too. I'm assuming that's because it's Fire Prevention Week, and we didn't get a chance to do anything with them this year. And I don't know if anybody had noticed, but we did have some red light bulbs installed out front, and that's what that was for, the Fire Prevention Week. Turn on our red light. Just so everybody is aware, we are continuing with part-time firefighter EMTs on Saturdays and Sundays. And does anybody have any questions?
Way to go, Mike, on some of these grants he's gotten. He's just a little grant crazy
Yeah.
guy, isn't he? And he's had such good
Yeah,
luck.
he gets into it. He's into it. Yes.
We're glad to have him help. Any questions on
No, it's been,
the chief?
pardon?
I was just asking if anybody had questions for you.
No, I think everything's going great.
Good.
Good.
Let's talk about that hazard pay, because you and John and I visited about that for a little bit. And we did get some legal answers, and maybe Roger has an update too, but we wanted to let the board know in case somebody wants to make a motion or if we need to, or so we're going to do an update on that. If you can kind of give them the overview, please.
A quick snapshot, in July, there was a couple of CARES monies that came out. The first one that we had applied for was the public safety reimbursement monies. We applied for that for April and May, and we were awarded 50% of those monies. I think everybody was only awarded 50% due to the fact that there was so many applicants. So we received roughly $25,900-ish. We did receive those monies. There was also a first responder hazard pay premium program that just said, okay, you're a frontline worker. You may apply up to $1,000 for each individual. We did. It was in a little bit later. We have not been awarded those monies yet. What I would ask is if we could take the monies from that. I'm not saying we're not going to get it. A lot of people think we will. I do not know. I do not know. If we can take those monies from the public safety reimbursement grant, if you will, or CARES money, because the checks have to be written according to the state by 10/31. And we possibly will not know if we receive that grant, the hazardous pay, until November 14th. And I think I have that right. And maybe Roger can help, because there was a lot of links besides those 30 pages I sent him to follow up on, and I was looking for help also. Roger, I don't know.
You should have gotten kind of an opinion report from me in the last day on that as an update. But basically, one of the first questions that arose was whether the fire department would be eligible to participate in both grants. And I won't bore you with all the details of that, but my conclusion was yes, that there is no conflict. The first grant was basically, as the chief indicated, for payroll expenses in the months of April and May. And that could include hazard pay or it could not include hazard pay. Ours was issued strictly as a reimbursement for COVID-related expenses. One of the issues or questions that arose was it had to be for expenses, payroll expenses that were not budgeted in the most recent budget that had been approved, which in Marquette Township's case would have been approved in December of 2019 for the 2020 year. On its face, that raised some red flags potentially. However, the U.S. Department of Treasury has issued a large number of publications interpreting the criteria. And basically, even if there were payroll expenses budgeted, if they ended up, if the employees wound up being assigned new duties such as sanitizing or enforcing social distancing, or all of the other measures that virtually any public agency needs to comply with, that qualifies as a substantially different duty than was budgeted. So it's much more involved than that, but long story short, the quick synopsis is we should be eligible for both that and the hazard pay grant. Now, technically, since the grant funds from what I'll call grant one, the one for the April and May payroll reimbursement is exactly that. It's a payroll reimbursement that has technically been utilized because we put out payroll. So in essence, what you have is it frees up other funds or other money that otherwise would have been spent on payroll. That might sound like a distinction that only matters to a lawyer or an accountant, but essentially, we're not technically taking the first grant money to pay the hazard pay for the second grant application. It would be independent dollars, if you will, that's coming from. and that does not pose any type of problem that I can foresee. The only issue that is out there that the board needs to be aware of is that it is possible that the grant could be applied for and the hazard pay dispensed, but the grant not be awarded. And that's a risk that nobody has that crystal ball as far as whether the funding will come through or it won't come through. But it is my understanding also from the information received from Chief Shanahan that unless it's extended again, the current criteria is the hazard pay is supposed to be paid by the end of this month. I guess we could probably defer that as long as possible also because perhaps one of two things will happen. Maybe the notification of the award will be issued or denial, that there'll be a decision made before then so that we know whether we're going to get it or not.
So that was it's kind of a confusing situation. Basically, we have money that we've received on a reimbursement for April and May. And we have another grant we've applied for that is also a reimbursement grant, which means we have to submit whatever that payroll is and be reimbursed for it after. So we have to the deadline for submittal is October 31st. So that means we have to pay it out, submit it, and then see if we can get the grant to reimburse it. So what the chief's wondering is whether or not we can use that initial grant that we have, it's in the bank, and pay the second and then be reimbursed for it. So it's kind of, I'm not sure, Roger, if this is something because of the amount of money, especially, or because it's a grant that we do need board action on. When we made up the agenda, we didn't know where this was going to sit. So I just had it added really quickly to the staff report so we wouldn't forget it. But should we get an actual board motion allowing this, or does the chief have that freedom basically to transfer that money?
The preference would be for there to be a motion by the board.
Okay. Does everybody understand kind of what we're doing here or asking?
And technically, let me emphasize again, you're not really using money from grant one to pay the hazard pay. You're using the money that grant one proceeds freed up because it was reimbursed. And again, that's maybe a fairly technical distinction, but a reasonably important one.
Yeah, the money's there. Dave?
Who would be receiving the hazard pay?
Steve?
The members on the department, and I have put a prorated scale, or I've been working on one, I should say, but the firefighters, everybody that worked in April and May.
Okay, everybody that was available to be called or everybody that actually worked?
And you had to have worked.
Okay.
Clear as mud, hey? Any other?
No, makes perfect sense.
Pat,
Ernie? Oh, I thought I saw his up.
How much, what kind of dollars are we talking about?
Well, I applied for on that second grant, the hazard pay, and not knowing exactly, I'm a firefighter. I asked for $1,000 for everybody. I don't know that we'll get that. I think pretty much everybody else has. And we have 27 members that would be eligible. So, but if we didn't, I wouldn't spend over what we've received so far. I was going to prorate that into an hour's work, but you got to remember, I just want this to be out there. In April and May, I asked a lot of people not to show up because we had a lot of concerns around here. for certain types of calls. So, I mean, but then we had our other calls too. So the percentages that people did show up, you're gonna say, well, but we only had so many fire, if you will, calls versus EMS calls. If that makes sense.
John, did you have your hand up before?
I don't know, you may have moved past it. Well, I got dropped out, but anyway, I just simply wanted to report under committee updates. The ZBA board held a meeting on October the 13th, and they granted two variances that were requested. One for granting an outbuilding that would house equipment inside, and a second one for a front yard variance that allowed the corner of a building to be built. Both those variances were granted, and the petitioner is going ahead with the construction.
We didn't quite get there yet, John, but we will.
That's okay. We got it now.
What was it you didn't get?
No, we didn't get that far yet, so you're okay.
Oh, okay, pardon me, I thought I don't know what happened, my whole thing dropped out, I had to come back in.
Okay.
Sorry
All right.
about
Pete?
Dan, when you ask those people not to show up, not to come in, does that qualify them for the pay?
Well, yes, it does. They still showed up. I mean, what I was doing is I was prorating it. But when I applied for that hazard pay premium, I guess I didn't read all. I mean, it says up to, and a lot of people did. And I've spoke with other cities, townships, county, how they approached it. And we're very close to how they approached it as well. So
I just wonder, because you said
But no,
you asked several not to come because of the virus and that. I just want to make sure that they qualified for it also.
for certain, I want to make sure I'm really clear on that. I asked them not to come on certain types of calls.
Okay.
I don't want just a firefighter to come to a EMS call. Certain types of EMS calls, yes, we did ask them to come, but we had either paged them or they knew certain places that we needed the help.
Okay.
But no, everybody, they didn't come to certain types of calls, but no, everybody did work during those 2 months that I'm talking about.
Just the way you
I
said
hope
it.
I made- Okay.
Hey, Ernie, I think you were next.
I have a question for Roger. You talked about freeing up dollars. Are those dollars you talked freeing up, was that the money we matched for the grant that we freed up?
There was no match.
Okay,
You got
So
money that came in to reimburse you for payroll, 50% of payroll for the fire department in the months of April and May. So that money would have been expended by the township regardless. I hate to say it's like finding money on the street, but it was an unanticipated revenue source so that you didn't have to expend the funds that it was anticipated you would be spending, if that makes sense.
The budgeted funds for payroll.
Right.
that answers my question, is that the funds that the township used to pay actually was, in technical was, or untechnical, how you want to do it, was reimbursed by the grant and that.
Yes.
Yeah, so that money is available, as far as I'm concerned, for the next step now.
The money that we were budgeted that we didn't spend.
We spent it and got it back.
Correct.
Yeah.
Dave?
Dan's been waving his hand there, but he was in the dark, so why don't you let him go?
I was gonna tell him I couldn't see him. I thought I saw.
You're on mute now, Dan.
I just had my wife come and turn some other lights on here. Lynn, what I wanted to what I wanted to state was, due to a conflict of interest, I will not be voting on this. That's all I wanted to state.
Just abstain then, Dan, when the vote comes.
Okay.
Okay, now Dave?
Yeah, I guess I'm unclear how they are gonna get paid. You said $1,000 per person. That means if they work during that time period, they're just gonna get $1,000? Are they gonna get an increase to what they were paid based on a percentage, or how do they get paid?
Yeah, it is interesting. I agree with you. No, what the first responder, and maybe Roger help me out. He might be able to explain. Maybe I'm not explaining this very well. The first, the feds, actually, the federal department said, okay, if you're a first frontline worker during stay at home, April and May, we will, if you had to go to work and you were a frontline worker, police officer, firefighter, EMS, dispatcher, I don't know, there was like 7 or 8 jobs that would qualify. We will give you I hope I'm saying this right. We'll give you $1,000 for having to go out there and work. If we don't get it, that's what I'm saying. I would like to prorate it down and not even spend that full 25.9, whatever. It's pretty close to that. But I did ask for everybody that worked for that $1,000.
So then it doesn't much matter how much you worked, or one time or 60 times during that time period, everybody would get the same check for $1,000.
That was the hard part. And I speaking to other communities, they broke it down. If they didn't work that many hours, they only gave them $750 or $500. Depending on, and I'd said a max. Everybody was getting it. I asked for the max.
Is that why you're?
I mean, I can understand
that by prorating.
I would prorate it if we do not, if we're going to use the reimbursement, the public safety reimbursement funds, that 25.9, I would prorate it down to a percentage. Yes.
Okay.
Randy?
Well, before we go too far on a vote, I will make a motion to excuse trustee Everson from the vote here.
Support.
Okay, roll call that.
Clerk Rattari, yes. Trustee or Treasurer Johnson?
Yes.
Trustee Everson, I think he can vote on excusing himself, right, Roger?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, he won't then.
I'll just abstain.
Well, no vote then, but trustee Marks,
Yes.
trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
trustee LaRue,
Yes.
and supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0 and 1 abstain.
Okay.
And I don't know that it has to be voted on this evening. If you'd like to give it time, I guess we'd have to, I'm not sure how that works though, if you'd have to call a special meeting or not, or I'm not sure, but
We won't
we
meet.
do have a little bit of time.
First, though. John?
My recommendation would be to make a motion authorizing the payment of hazard pay up to $1,000 per employee in the department and ensure that it gets paid before the end of the month so that if we are successful, we can get the reimbursement for whatever was paid. But you have to decide who you want to authorize, deciding who's getting what amount. I think Dan said he's got it prorated in $250 increments starting at 500 up to 1,000. I think if you authorize payment of hazard pay up to $1,000 per employee, assuming that's what Dan's still considering, not going above 1,000 per person.
Correct, I wouldn't.
then we could sit down, go through the list, make sure that the prorating is fair, and process that before the end of the month. We have payroll being processed for this Thursday. That's not to say Lois couldn't do a special round for next Thursday, which puts us closer to the end of the month. But I think we still have to be very careful how we're saying this according to what Attorney Zappa said, and that is we are not using the first grant to pay for the second. We are using funds saved by the first grant that were in the budget and we didn't spend. We're using that to pay for the hazard pay.
Dave?
Yeah, I could make a motion to authorize the hazard pay based on a prorated basis not to exceed $1,000 per firefighter.
I'll support.
Support.
Question,
Go ahead, Ernie.
do you want to indicate who's going to make the determination on the hazard pay?
It'd be the fire chief, I would think. He has the hours.
Yeah, you mean the proration?
Yes,
Yeah, to be determined by the fire chief.
okay.
Okay, do we need to include the manager as far as authorization just to cover the fire chief so that we have, does that matter?
Good. Consider it done.
That's what I thought you said.
Okay. Any other discussion, questions? Okay, roll call, Randy.
I'll just state the motion again, so it's on the record. It'd be authorized to pay the hazard pay or proration of the hazard pay determined by the township manager and fire chief. Not to exceed $1,000 a person. Right, Dave?
Correct.
Okay, roll call vote is trustee Wiegand.
Yes.
Clerk retires, yes. Trustee Marks,
Yes.
trustee LaRue,
Yes,
treasurer Johnson,
Yes,
and supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0 and 1 not voting.
Okay. That
Thank you.
took longer than I thought, but it works all right. Public Works is up next. Dazzle us, Lenny.
Hello, everyone. Just a couple quick things. In stormwater, we've assembled our team for the non-point grant program. So we've been really working on that here this last week. It's a very technical application here. So we've been really consulting with a lot of our partners and our in-house manager Kangas and Jason and Ryan. We've been all working together pretty much to get this put away. We hope to have it done here by next week and then get it submitted the first week of November. So hopefully we'll keep our fingers crossed and we'll be able to get everything done and get it in and we'll get that grant. For solid waste, single stream recycling is now in effect. We do not have any kind of glass recycling or take in for the township at this time. But if residents do need to, they can bring it right to the landfill. They can get it there. They just got to bring it there themselves. Also, Ryan had worked on a couple of grants for recycling bins, and he got them. And so Marquette Township did get some grants for recycling bins. Right now, we're looking at approximately, give or take, 1,500 bins that we will get, I think, around in next spring. So, and that's going to be a little to no cost. So that's a really good thing for us here. I know we have a lot of residents calling about the recycle bins and stuff. And for now, they got to use the ones that we have. But in the near future, we'll have some new ones and bigger ones and easier ones for recycling. Onto wastewater. We pulled that second pump from the Center Street lift station, the Landia pump. We looked at it and that one is pretty well shot too. We were looking at the wear on the impeller and all the wet parts on the bottom of the pump. So I'm pretty sure the same thing happened to that pump. It sucked up a lot of debris and it wore everything out. I currently have the pump in the Landia repair facility in North Carolina. I was kind of hoping that they would have a repair quote for us by this meeting so we could give it to you. But they haven't got it to us yet. So we're not going to make any moves until we consult the board on the repair costs. We're kind of out of that immediate emergency mode with the one new pump that is installed, but we still got to get a second pump into that station as soon as possible. So going forward, we're going to try to clean the wet well out a little bit more often, make some more inspections on the pumps, actually pull them, look, make sure nothing's going on. We also have some ideas, maybe a long-term fix, looking at the way the pumps are sitting in the station. They're sitting right on the bottom of the wet well. So that might have contributed to some of the problem if rocks and debris and stuff are coming through. It might be kind of a big project. It's not going to happen anytime soon, but we might try to figure out a way to get them up a little bit higher off the floor so they're not sucking everything into the impellers and really beating them up. But that's something we're going to have to look to in the future. But for now, we're just going to really keep on top of that lift station, try to keep it cleaned out, pull the pumps on a more regular basis to make sure that there's nothing, kind of messing them up and that kind of stuff. So, and just to let you know, there is going to be some overtime associated with what we had going on between waiting for that pump to get fixed. We kind of had to go out manually operate our trash pump. And, that had to happen a couple times a day throughout the day. So there will be some overtime associated with that, but it was something that had to be done. On to water, we just got a notification today that all of our operators were approved to write their certification tests next month. So that's a really good thing. So they all had enough experience and the qualifications to write the tests that level that they put in for. So that's really good news. And it's good for the township to have highly qualified operators, and it's documented on paper that they are. We've also been busy doing routine maintenance on our water system. So we've been making sure all the hydrants are winterized, other little things, making sure all the valves are marked, other things are marked, making sure they're all up to the proper grade and stuff. So we've been doing a lot of housekeeping items in the meantime, trying to get this stuff done. Manager Kangas and I also attended a virtual presentation concerning the Michigan Clean Water program. There's basically $500 million that's going to be allocated out there between water and wastewater. As far as the water goes, the lion's share of the money is going to be basically allocated towards lead copper type stuff, lead line replacement, which we don't have a lot of. Actually, we don't have any of that kind of stuff, lead lines. But there is $35 million set aside for other projects. And then there's $37.5 million set aside for asset management. And that's one of the big things we're going to be looking at for drinking water is drinking water asset management programs. And the grant is available for that. So we're going to really be looking at that and putting our heads together and going through that program there. And there's also some other programs that we're going to try to brainstorm on and think about, and we will be talking about that internally and talking to the board about that. I guess that's all I got for now. Is there any questions?
Nope.
Yeah, Lenny, I just on the pump replacement, do I understand that we have a new pump replace the number one pump that failed?
Yes, that was a new pump. It's a rebuilt pump, but it's kind of like the Johnny Cash song, I got it one piece at a time. Okay. It's essentially a new pump that's in an old casing. So they basically replaced everything inside of the pump, right down to the windings.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Anything else? John?
I just wanted to add before we lose track, the 2 grants that Ryan was successful in obtaining on behalf of the township for these recycling carts for our residential customers. We intend to bring that to you at the first meeting in November for your approval. Attorney Zappa has both of those reviewing, making sure we're not going to agree to something that's not in our best interest. But I think it's a great program. We just need to find another grant that would get us the same thing for the garbage side, but I know they're not encouraging people to create more garbage, so there's not necessarily the grant money for that kind of thing, but I know we want to try to figure that other half of the equation out somehow.
Okay. Any other questions for Lenny? Good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Let's do our attorney report and then we'll hear our sheriff's report. How does that sound?
Well, it was an exceptionally busy month this past month. First of all, evaluating the Michigan Supreme Court's decision invalidating the governor's executive orders and the subsequent health department orders and the subsequent legislation passed in response to the Supreme Court action. In addition, of course, we had the issue that came up just a couple days ago on the CARES grant and the hazard pay grant. Numerous tax tribunal appeals, including one as recent as today that I received from the assessor. That one was from, well, basically Hong Kong Buffet Bowling Alley complex there. We've continued to try to keep the marijuana ordinance moving forward and had a planning commission meeting I think it was just this past week, where we made a couple of other minor tweaks. A public hearing was held as well on that. We've had an ongoing issue with a street abandonment that goes back to, well, it started in 1987. And I think we've come up with a mechanism that will put that to rest finally. And we had a question that came up on a potential mandatory sewer connection on where the residents are, the ownership is changing and in terms of whether they have to or don't have to connect to the sewer. We've taken the position they do have to connect to it. We had an absentee voting issue, just a question that came up that the clerk forwarded that I looked over. We've had a number of questions regarding permissible activities under the Campaign Finance Act in conjunction with the upcoming election. I'm sure I'm probably overlooking something, but those are some of the highlights, at least as I indicated. It's been even busier than usual last several weeks.
We have thrown a lot at you, Roger, and I can't thank you enough for your diligence. And it seems like you drop everything you're doing to help us. I know that's not the case, but it sure seems that way because you're so diligent is the best word I can think of. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
Dave?
Yeah, just to clarify, I guess, my understanding of what happened with the Supreme Court decision. Do I understand that the Supreme Court invalidated the executive orders effective the end of October? Or
No, it was effective immediately. The opinion was issued on October 2nd of 2020. And the governor made the assertion that it couldn't take effect until approximately 21 days later. The Supreme Court said she was wrong, that it was effective immediately. And for further clarification, it's not every executive order. It's only those executive orders that were entered after April 30 of 2020. However, many of those there aren't many of those that were still in effect anyway, because the subsequent orders either extended or modified or amended those earlier ones. So that's why it was so imperative for A, the health department, or B, the legislature to step in and on some of the more critical subjects, at least, to come up with some replacements. The health department was able to do that with a number of the health type of issues, but they of course don't have really any authorities to start intermeddling in Open Meetings Act issues, for example. So that's where the legislature then stepped in, and both the House and the Senate approved a bill and the governor signed it just a few days ago. I don't have the exact date in my head on that, which allows us to be doing this rather than having a quorum physically, a majority physically present anymore.
Well, maybe we could talk the governor into issuing an executive order for dark store issues, and then maybe the legislature would then get off the stick and do something about that.
Worth a shot.
Yeah, we're bleeding here and just can't fix the sore. Any other questions for Mr. Z? Okay, thank you. We are blessed to have our sheriffs with us tonight. I thought maybe it would be a good time. We try to catch up with the sheriff's department at least once a year. And we know they've been busy with a lot of different things this year as everybody else. But so I invited the sheriff to kind of give us an update. And there's a lot of stuff that even when the previous sheriff came and talked about things that we weren't even thinking about. We didn't think about the jail and what all has to happen. That's good for the board to know as well as the public. So if you can think out of your box, Sheriff, and what's very mundane and typical to you may not be to us because we don't have a clue what really goes on, and other than the tickets that are issued or stops.
You
Whatever
know,
share with us would be great.
sure. And thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and the people of Marquette Township or whoever's watching. You know, when I became sheriff 4 years ago, I had been a road officer and a chief of police for 36 years. And for that amount of time, I was the one bringing people into jail. Now I switched hats and it kind of flipped my world around because it's, I tell you, it's especially for me, the unsung hero are the correctional officers. It's can be a very thankless job, tedious, and I mean, our staff does such a great job, but you know, they're responsible for the health and well-being, not only physical, but mental health. And also they, a lot of times the people in here, they've never had anyone who really cared about them and they become mentors, you know, when they're in there for a year. My new jail administrator, Brian Steed, who replaced Greg Gustafson, who retired approximately 4 months ago. Greg was with us for 30 some years. I don't know exactly, but Brian has been a long time and he's doing an outstanding job. But he had mentioned that, you know, he'll see people 10 years later come up to him and they'll start questioning him and he remembers them, but it leads into, you know, I wanted to thank you for what you did for me inside the jail. You know, actually talking to him, and you know, a lot of times we have programs to teach people how to cook, how to do a basic checkbook, how to just do basic things that we take for granted every day they've never done. And our jail staff, you know, fills that position also while, you know, dealing with a lot of mental ill drug addicts. You know, we try and do programs for both of them. And I'm going to mention some of the things that we've implemented at the Sheriff's Department. So it really is, it's a totally different job for me. And I'm still learning every day, especially with this COVID, because it's, you know, we implemented some policies, procedures, as far as keeping them isolated, anyone who comes in, and then for a period of time. And it's an antiquated facility. It was built in 1975 for 60 people. And we upgraded, I think, in the 90s to about 80 people. And then we also have the detention center out at Mangum Farm, which that is for low risk people on work release. People, you know, it's a dormitory style facility. We only have 2 correctional officers, so it can't be anyone dangerous, and we have to screen them. And so between the 2 of them, we try and have programs and different things to help these people. And during the COVID, it really has, it's been very hard. And with the help of the courts, we're letting a lot of people out on PR bond, so we don't have to have the numbers. And we're trying to, you know, since February, March, I'm telling, and we just re-implemented with my department, you know, not to make those stops for broken headlights or taillights, or unless it's a pretty severe violation, that officer doesn't want to catch it as much as the person who's in there. So we're letting a lot go. We're getting PR bonds, and we're trying to keep our numbers down. Because of that, you know, during the probably June, July, August, a lot of the people who were supposed to appear never appeared. So now we have 600-700 outstanding warrants for people who didn't appear. So it's just a big mess, and we have no idea where it's going to go from there. So, but let me, I'll tell you about some of the things that we've implemented here at the Marquette County Sheriff's Office. Some of the things that helped me learn, I was invited and I attended the National Sheriff's Academy. It's a 3-week academy for new sheriffs in Colorado. And it was a real great learning experience. Of course, anytime you get together and do that, one of the main things is networking. And you have sheriffs with, they have 5,000-10,000 officers from New Jersey all the way down to 3 or 4. So you get every different aspect in that academy. It was just a great thing to go to, and I'll give you some of the ideas they gave me. Since that time, I've been appointed by the governor. I'm now on the MCOLS board, and what MCOLS is the Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement Standards. We oversee all 19,000, give or take, 100 or so police officers in the state of Michigan. That's the licensing, that is the taking those licenses away, which we do quite a bit. And then we implement what training is required. In the last few months, you've seen these shootings of Black people and different ethnicities, and something's got to change. And you've seen the protesting, and in Marquette even, what we're doing in MCOLS, we're trying to, for 10 years, the state of Michigan has been defunding MCOLS. And I could have told you this years ago. What's going to happen is what has happened. When police officers are trained, when they're in a tense situation, they react to the way they're trained. Okay, when you have to pull your gun, or react to someone, you resort to how you're trained. You get nervous and scared, and you resort to how you're trained. Because they've been cutting MCOLS, and they're the ones who give out the major grants to like Northern Michigan University Police Academy. We've had to cut back training. In the last 4 years, we really, except for what our department does training on, there hasn't been any training. We used to have a 40-hour block every officer would go through every year, and all that grant funding through MCOLS has been cut out. So because of it, you're seeing what's happening. You're not getting the training in, dealing with the mentally ill, or, people of different color, the racial things and that type of thing. And we have to get, and in fact, I've been asked to, on next year, I'll be the chair of MCOLS. And one of my main things is going to our legislators and helping us get money to help fund MCOLS. They have about 5 or 6 positions that they haven't filled because of the freezing, the hiring freeze. And so it's a real mess, and we're hoping to get our officers trained the way they should be. Let's see, I'm on the board of UPSET. UPSET has been crazy busy. Right now, crystal meth is the biggest thing in Marquette County and the Upper Peninsula. It used to be the one pot method. You would see where people are making meth they rent motel rooms, make it in the bathtubs. They get the Gatorade bottles and get all the different things and make it. And it was crystal meth. We're not seeing as much as that anymore, thankfully, because they had all those toxic dump sites on the side of the road where they dump the stuff, and people walking would come upon that. We're not seeing as much because the availability of crystal meth coming in from Detroit, Milwaukee, Chicago, the price has gone down and it's come up. So it's around here, and it's like crazy. And UPSET is very busy trying to tackle that problem. The sheriff's office, we have an officer on that team, along with Marquette City and a bunch of others. But there's federal agencies that are involved, the DEA, ATF, all kind of letters with the feds are involved in it. And they've expanded to not only one upset, now they have upset north, which is the Houghton, that area, upset east, which is Sault Ste. Marie, St. Ignace, and we're upset west. So there's 3 different teams, around 7 or 8 people. And we've gotten some really good grant monies. They've gotten some really good seizures. Those are going to go down because the law has changed, where someone has to be convicted in order to seize any assets. Before, once they're arrested, you could seize the assets and they would have to prove how they got the assets. So it's changing, and but they're still making tons of arrests and doing a lot of seizures. And financially, in fact, it was funny, we were talking about the money they have in the bank has been great versus when I was the chair. We were doing bake sales to try and get some buy money. It was that bad. So Upset is doing a great job. Unfortunately, they're very, very busy. Let's see. One of the things I'm very proud of in my tenure as sheriff is the grants that we've obtained. We've gotten well over $1 million in grants in the last 4 years. A lot of that, Marquette is a kind of unique and the perfect size for pilot programs. When the state wants to try something, they're looking for, they can't do it real big because they only have a certain amount of money. One of the pilot programs and grants that I was able to receive that we wrote was for CIT, Crisis Intervention Training. This has become the gold standard throughout policing throughout the whole United States. And it's now the trend. We've been involved in this for 4 years now, where I've sent officers and myself through this training. And what it is how to deal with mentally ill, how to look for and recognize people with mental illness. We are actually teaching other agencies, helping them out on how to do this. It used to be you'd stop someone with autism not knowing, and they're aggressive, they're loud, and it became a battle. Now the officers can get some vibes, and what they're learning is how to de-escalate. Instead of just going in and getting in fights, they're talking, de-escalate, using time. Time is good, and you got plenty of it, and it's helping people. The officer isn't getting injured, and the person on the people on the road, the mentally ill, aren't getting injured. So we've done that, and one of the grants was, and you've probably seen it, we got about a $400,000 grant. That was for the training, but also we have 2 rooms in the jail now, which are separate from the regular community. And when an officer gets a call and the person isn't high or isn't drunk or is just doing something strange, instead of just dropping them off at the hospital, taking up all kinds of time, the officer has to sit for them for 3, 4, 5 hours. Now they're bringing them, and it's usually non-aggressive, non-assaultive crimes, where maybe someone, a homeless or someone's urinating in the parking lot, or they're just doing something that is weird. And so the officer brings them here. It has to be something that is illegal, where they broke the law, and we call an officer in on overtime. It pays for the overtime for the officer to come in and watch them until we get someone from Pathways there. Then they analyze them, and quite often sometimes it's someone who's just not on their meds. We get them back on their meds, and now the prosecutor's office, which used to have to press the charges, then they go to court, so it's taking up the time of the court, and then they go to probation and parole. And that takes months and hours, hundreds of hours, and it's a diverting CIT, diverting them out of the jails and the criminal justice system. And that seems to be the trend. And we were at the top of this. It was a pilot program that seems to be going well. and we received about $400,000. But you know, I'm really proud of the fact I'm constantly attending different, before COVID, different conferences, or that's how you find these grants. As your fire chief knows, you got to be talking with people, you got to be reading stuff, you got to be on the ball, because the grant money goes fast and you have to get it in quick, and you have to know, you know, what you're doing, and try and talk them into bringing it. And that's what we've done here at Marquette County Sheriff's Office. We implemented body cameras for the correction officers. Our road officers have had it for a long time. And actually, when I was with Chalkley, we were one of the first in the state of Michigan. And I, you know, I even went to the White House and testified at the White House in front of congressmen on the use of body cameras. And in the jail, we have monitors, probably around 50 monitors, that the control room, one person is watching all these different television sets. And when a correction officer goes in and is dealing with someone, you don't get the audio, and it's just a big screen. And I was concerned liability, and we got some grant money, and we got body cameras for the correction officers inside the jail. And I'll tell you, it's really come in handy for court purposes, and even we had a couple officers that were acting inappropriate, and we were forced to get rid of them because of the actions that we saw, how they were treating the prisoners and that. So they've been a blessing, and I totally believe in body cameras. We were able to obtain through Marquette County, the Board of Commissioners, a building for our new special ops building, which was constructed in 2019. And that houses all the equipment for special ops. It's centrally located. It's right next to the health department, so it's easy. West End, Marquette, and it houses our 131 and our search and rescue. So it's man, we've been wanting this for years, and it was, we really appreciate the board supporting us. And that's one thing I really have to, you know, coming in as the sheriff, I actually had 4 of the 6 commissioners that were kind of backing my opponents. And when I became sheriff, I really had to offer the olive branch, go out. And I can't tell you how great it's been working with them. And they have just totally supported us. Even something, you know, that's expensive. We had a real problem with drugs in our jail. At one time, we had 30 female prisoners. A lady had brought the meth in through one of their body cavities, and the correction officer can't check it, and she distributed to all the female prisoners, and they all took it. They were all high on meth, and one of them overdosed, and we got her to the hospital before she passed away. Well, as Roger probably knows, when someone dies in the jail, usually the minimum check is $1 million. It's very expensive. And I started doing research as soon as I went to that National Sheriff's Academy, because I was concerned with it. And I looked around, I asked what others were doing. We're the first in the state of Michigan to get it. But basically, whoever is arrested comes in now, and they go through a body scanner. It's an X-ray machine. And we can see if they're carrying something, if it's sizable, inside their body. And then if we do, we get a search warrant, we take them to the hospital, and that's removed. So another thing we did is we got a drug dog. When people come in, not only the dog, but the X-ray scanner. And it has, knock on wood, eliminated all drugs coming into the jail. We haven't had any problems. Well, one thing we try and emphasize to all the officers who bring people is we tell them, when you bring them in, if you have something on you, you tell us now, it's a misdemeanor. If we find it on you, it's a five-year felony. So we try and emphasize, and a lot more often than not, they give it up before they even go through the scanner. So it's been a really, really big success. And the board came up, we wrote a grant for that through our risk manager. We're the first, as I said, the first in the state, and now other agencies are going with this body scanner, and it's really helping with drugs in the jail. Let's see, body scanner. One thing that I've tried to do, because we're a really antiquated facility here, is bring technology to the county jail. And this technology has paid for itself 100 times in that with the COVID. We got a thing, and it's through Securus, and it's called video visitation, where, on, I think it was Monday, Wednesday, and Saturdays, you could have visitation in the jail, and we would have probably 30 to 50 people lined up wanting to visit someone in the jail. It was very labor intensive because of the fact that the deputy we only had 3 spots. Deputy would have to get the person out of the cell, pat them down, handcuff them, bring them to the visiting room, sit there for half an hour, bring them back, and for 50 different people. Now we have video visitation, and grandma who's in California who wants to see their grandson, they get they get online, they get the app Securus. Now they can talk on their phone to a prisoner. They set up a schedule, and the price isn't much more than a phone call now. And I'll tell you, we don't even have people coming in the jail to visit. It's all online video visitation, and even the attorneys are using it. So during COVID, we don't have all these people coming in to possibly spread it. So it's been such a blessing. Another thing, technology-wise, with the same company, we have e-messaging. We no longer accept mail. What was happening was they would put some type of drug, LSD, behind the stamp. And when they pull it off, or they would write a letter and put the paper in Suboxone, in water in Suboxone, a drug, and then they'll let it dry and write the letter, and they'd eat the letter and they'd get high. So that was another problem coming in the jail. So we stopped all US mail, and what we got is this e-messaging, and it's basically they email it to us and we print it out and we give it to them. So it eliminated the drugs and any paraphernalia coming into the jail. So these are, this technology has been great for us here at the sheriff's office. Another thing I'm trying to really get a lot of people, we started, I'd say about a month ago, but if you haven't gotten on your smartphone, is the Marquette County Sheriff's app. And you go to the app store, you look up Marquette County Sheriff's Office, and you purchase it. It doesn't cost anything, and it gives you all kinds of information. Again, it's saving us labor intensive, where people are calling the control room constantly wanting to know what the bond is. All this information is on the app. It tells all the sexual offenders in Marquette County. It tells everyone, shows a picture, everyone who is lodged in jail. We had that before, and there was some liability issues that this other company and they got it through Vine, which is Victim Information Network. They were putting people out there who had been arrested but had not been arraigned. And once in a while, the prosecutor wouldn't authorize on the charges because there wasn't enough probable cause or whatever. And then these people's names and faces, they were arrested and they're out there. They were charged and arrested, but it never went anywhere. So I had a problem with that, and I cut that, and we came out with our own app, and it gives out notifications if we have snowstorms and the road is if we block it, it will give you this is closed or avoid this area because there's an accident. There's all kinds of very useful things, and if you have a newsletter or something, I appreciate you putting it out on that because, as I said, it's been about a month now, month and a half, and we already have about 7,500 people on this app. So it's really growing. It's very informational, and people are loving it. We've started, correction officers, as I said, it's a hard job and it's hard to keep people in it. And one of the things, once they become correctional officers, they have to go through an academy within a year. It's not like the road where you have to go through the academy before. They have to be certified within a year. And it's like a revolving door, keeping correctional officer. It's very hard and it's a very expensive thing because of the fact you have to send, more often than not, they had academies downstate and you have to send them for, I don't know how many, I think it's 10 or 12 weeks. And, you know, hotel, lodging, all the food, everything. So what we did is we started correctional academies here in Marquette. And we've had 2 of those so far, and they've been a real success. It's great we open it up to any agency in the Upper Peninsula because all the different smaller departments have the same problem. They don't have the budgets that the big ones downstate do. And so it's saving everyone money. So that's been a really, really good thing. We instituted a youth police academy. That was a great success. You know, I started when I was, I think, 12 years old. I'm from Livonia, Michigan. John Marks, are you there?
Yes,
I remember stuffing your envelopes when you were,
yeah.
you were with my dad. But this academy, it's a youth academy, and it's for kids to try and get them interested in police work. Corrections, there's so many different aspects. And we've had, I think, 2 or 3 of them. First one was like 30, and we're learning each time, and that was way too many because we break them down. And the next one was about 18 to 22, and it's a little more personal. But everything from you know, CPR and CSI, crime scene investigation, every aspect of police work. And these kids just love it. And in fact, we have hired people who were in the academy that are working as correctional officers. So when I was down in Livonia Police Department, I was really in Westland, but I went to Livonia Police Department, had a cadet academy. Once I went through that, for me, that's all I ever wanted to do from then on. I knew when I went to high school, when I went to college, what I had to do, had to keep my nose clean, these are the classes. And and there's a lot of kids who are really excited. And now I still keep in touch with them. They're looking they're going to different academies now. So I think it's a real good thing to get our youth involved in something like this. So I'm also very proud of that. We took over the weight master duties for Marquette County Road Commission. You know, the road commission guys, they're in an orange truck and they're stopping trucks from all over the nation that come in. These trucks aren't always the nicest thing. They carry drugs, they're carrying weapons, all sorts of things coming from Canada and all sorts. So they were afraid for their officers that are stopping these semi trucks. And they had asked me if we would do it. I sent officers, they have, it was a part-time type thing, and it was a trial. It seemed to go really, really good. Mr. Iwaniki with the road commission was very happy. My officers, they enjoyed doing it. And, you know, we first try and educate. We always try and educate then. And if it's an ongoing thing, they're going to get tickets. And we did issue some tickets, but that was a good thing for the road commission. And I think it's a good thing for us because that deputy is not only a weighmaster when he's out there, he's also a police officer, and he's doing it on a part-time basis. He's coming in on overtime, and the road commission is paying for that. So it's a win-win type thing. Another thing I'm really proud of, we sent one of our officers, and he is a drug recognition expert. Things have changed so much since I've been a road officer. You know, you could spot a drunk a mile away. They roll down the window and you could smell it. It hits your face just like, you know, automatically. The eyes are bloodshot. But now there's more people drugged driving than they are drunk driving. And it's not only marijuana, it's opiates, it's drugs to sleep, it's all kinds of drugs. Well, it's harder to figure out if someone's on drugs. So the state Office of Highway Safe Planning, national wide, it's throughout the whole country. And we only had about 3 or 4 in the state of Michigan when I came on, but I really wanted an officer who knows. And I got Aaron Griffin. He was the top of the class. He scored the highest in the state. And they can't tell you exactly what drug it is, but they can tell you what type, what family of drug it is, be it a opiate or, you know, something that brings you up or brings you down. But they have 12 different tests, from blood pressure and eyes and temperature and all kinds of things. It's very specific, but they're training our officers and other officers throughout the county on how to detect, and they are available. We have 2 of them, a state trooper and Aaron Griffin. And when a officer has someone where they're not sure, they call up this deputy. He goes out to the scene, or he'll meet them at the hospital when they draw blood, and they test them and evaluate them. So in fact, again, we're a pilot program, and only the DREs are allowed to use this, but we have a new thing, and it's called Sotoxa. And what that is, it's a roadside test, and it's a saliva based where they're rubbing the gums, and it will tell you if they're on some type of drug. Now, like the PBT, it's not admissible in court, but it's just another tool in the workbox for these officers to use, and only the DRE can use it. But he can go out to the scene, and within 5 minutes, it tells them if they're on drugs. It doesn't tell how much, you know, there is not a level. It just says he's on drugs. So it's another way that it's helping us get people who are impaired off the road, so they're not killing our friends and family. I could go on. We got a ton of them, but I don't want to take up all your time. These are some of the real success things I think that I brought to the Marquette County Sheriff's Office. You know, I'm looking for another 4 years. I have someone running against me, but I'm hoping the people have seen what we've done here at the Sheriff's Office, and I'm able to get another 4 years. Is there any questions anyone has?
Pete?
Greg, it's meth is a problem, you know. So what, can residents help anyway, or how do they help? You know, if they spot
Well,
someone.
you know, if you got a house, and you know, marijuana is now legal, and we're dealing with it. I mean, I did a thing with the couple owners of the places that sell. And, you know, truthfully, in fact, Logan Michaels, he has the one out in Negaunee. I've known him for years, and he came to me, he says, I want to do this right. And he says, I'm spending thousands of dollars to set this business up, and I'm not going to take a chance by selling to a minor or selling. So they are going right by the book. And they, you know, 2 of my concerns were, of course, the availability and people driving, and that has gone up. The other one is for our youth. You know, when they sell gummy bears that are, you know, it's a food product that they can take instead of smoking. It seems like they're trying to sell it to kids. You know, why would you make gummy bears instead of something else? And I was concerned about juveniles getting it easier, but it's not coming from these places. They are very strict, and we have people watching it very close, and you know, they're trying to do everything right. I'll tell you that the parking lot, and it's continuous. If you ever go by any of those places, it's a continuous line, and I've seen, you know, it's minivans, and it's you know, it's people 45 to 60, and it's not only, it's medical. And so we've adapted, and you know, it's part of society now. If you had told me 30 years ago that I'd be taking a complaint from someone who had their drugs stolen from them, I would have laughed in your face. But you know, but as far as to answer your question, Pete, what I tell people, if you got something and people are dealing or using, and you usually know your neighbors, start writing down license plates, just for a week. If there's a constant flow and there's, usually if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it usually is a duck. And if you see people, and it could be marijuana, there's a lot of places that are selling, but we're starting to learn where those places are, and they are legal. They can have them up to a certain amount. They can sell to or give to their friends and that. The laws are changing so much, it's hard to keep up, but we're dealing with it, and we're actually going after the serious drugs and not waste time with the marijuana. So that's what I'm telling people, is to really, take license plates, or if you even pictures, these cameras, and you can remain anonymous and call it in to us. The hotline, on our app, we have a hotline, or the Upset has an anonymous hotline too.
When you were in Colorado, did you see anything how they're handling with the marijuana? I mean, in stores down there, some of the grocery stores, they have a bag, a little piece of paper they throw in your grocery bag, do's and don'ts about marijuana and stuff like that. I mean, what do we got to look forward to in the future with all the stores coming in and that?
Well, with the stores, I think the market, so far we only had about, I think there's 2 of them in the county. I've looked at their packaging, and they really, they package it the right way, telling you to keep this stuff away out of the hands of children. And right now, it's looking better than what I had expected. Down the road, who knows? We may have to do the same things we were doing with bars, where we do underage liquor inspections, and we send people in to make buys and see if they're going by the rules. But right now, I don't think they're going, as Logan said, we're not going to take a chance making a little bit of money and taking a chance of losing their license. So right now, they seem to be doing it well, and we haven't seen an increase in any type of crime, or it's too early to tell because it's such a new law. And when I spoke the other day, we did a thing with Lake Superior Community Partnership, and they wanted stats, and there's just nothing out there yet.
All right, thanks.
Somebody else have their hand up? Okay. Greg, I'm astounded at all. And I'm sure you've got another hour's worth of stuff you could share with us too, but this is really informative.
Well, and with the officers that right now you have Jay Loonsfoot and Jesse is coming, and this is an opportunity for us. For me, and I know Pete was out in Chalkley, and for years, community policing is the way to go. And I try and teach this with our officers. I want them to be in the community and get to know the people. And Jesse is aggressive. He's gone after drugs, but this is going to be his opportunity. And I'm going to emphasize that you're going to be community policing. You're going to be out talking to the people. He will be stopping cars and doing everything, but this is his opportunity to learn a different aspect of police work. And please let me know. But I know Jay and all the others who've been out there, they really try and get out there. And for me, community policing, Andy Griffin was probably the best community. People ask me what was the most realistic show, that if you could be Andy was the best. He knew everyone in Mayberry and everyone knew him. And, it doesn't get any better than that, but that's the way to go. And that's how I've done business my whole career.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming. You're welcome to stay on. I'm sure you've got other stuff to do, but we sure.
I got a 6:30 with Walt Lindela, so I am going to cut out. We're going to talk about drug take back. I don't know if it's for everyone who has extra drugs. If you have a senior or someone and all these extra drugs, it's coming up, and we'll give you the information. But we're talking about the drug take back program that's coming up.
Well, if you got little news press releases or something, give them to us. We can put them on our website too.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that.
And some of them might be afraid to try your app, or they feel like, oh, I don't want the sheriff to know I'm looking at them, or, so
Well,
they,
yeah, and I'll give you an informational type of thing, and a lot of, especially my age and up, don't know how to do it, and it's something, and I could do a instructional type of thing is how to get the app. It costs nothing, and I think some people, the busybodies want to know who's in jail. They love that. So I will get you something, and I'll have that, your township officer bring stuff to you.
okay.
So thank you very much for the opportunity, and
Yes,
really
sir.
appreciate the contract work that we do with you guys.
Yes, we appreciate you too. And good luck in the election.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
See you
Greg.
later. Good night.
All right. Let's move on. We're just down to community linkage. We had a FOIA request from a resident, and this is just informational. I don't know if anybody wanted to discuss this. It was more or less just for information, as it says. Anything anybody wants to mention about it? Pete?
No, I just got a question about, did somebody get back to Mr. Oh, what's his name then? About the Mr. Miller. Did somebody get back to him?
Yes, we did.
All right, thank you.
I'll address that.
Okay. Anything else on that? We can move to committee updates. About planning, Dave.
How about if we start with the road and rec committees, because they'll tie into what's going on in planning.
Okay.
The rec committee's meeting tonight was canceled, and we already updated the last rec committee meeting at the last board meeting. The road committee, October 6th meeting, we discussed the streetlight analysis, and we're still working on that, trying to put some recommendations together for the board and the manager to consider. And we approved the 2021 road rehab maintenance recommendations for consideration by the Planning Commission and manager. I thought it would have been on the agenda tonight for the board to consider, but we'll leave that where it is. As far as the Planning Commission goes, the October 14th Planning Commission meeting, the commission conducted public hearings on both the medical and adult use recreational marijuana facilities and establishments, and on the mobile food trucks zoning text amendments. We received no public comment. Both were moved to the required 30-day Marquette County comment period, and both of those text amendments have been reviewed by legal. And following the required comment period, both amendments will be revisited at the November 11th commission meeting. We anticipate from there, if we don't receive any other comments, moving them to the board for their consideration as a first reading at their November 17th board meeting. The draft medical and adult use recreational marijuana board ordinance received a few final edits, and we'll rediscuss that again at the October 28th commission meeting, with the hopes of moving that to the board for consideration at their November 4th meeting. This ordinance has also been through legal review, so it's just about ready to wrap it up. And that is about it, unless somebody's got some questions.
Anything for Dave? Okay. How are we doing on events, Pete?
I emailed and left a message for Todd to see when he's going to set a schedule our next meeting. With the way this virus thing is going, I think we have to reassess what we're doing and how we can do it better and be more careful. If it don't get any better, I think we can still continue on. But it's not getting any better. I'm waiting for him to call back. I don't know if John, if you heard from Todd at all for the meeting. So tomorrow, if I don't hear from him, I want to go out there and talk to him. We have to sit down and meet about the Christmas tree. And the tree was supposed to be out in K.I. Sawyer. We're talking about having something in the parking lot and go inside, but all depends on what the health department tells us to do and what we can and we can't do. But we're looking forward to moving ahead, but we have to have that next meeting. So I'll let you know when we get it.
Don't forget, excuse me, you can use these Zoom opportunities too. Clerk Rattari can set that up for you if you guys don't want to meet in person.
I know, but he has to call back first.
Okay. Okay. Any questions for Pete? We'll just wait and see how that goes. We also have in tonight's packet draft committee reports from the fire department from their business meeting and officers meetings of September 14th. Next up is the MTA online subscription. We touched on this a little bit at the last meeting, and we did, in fact, I think there was an insert in last meeting unless I just copied it for myself, but I talked to the manager and he was going to do a little more research. I think this is a no-brainer for us to stay in touch with what's going on. If we can do little webinars independently as the whole township, not just the board, but staff too. The cost is just ridiculously low. I mean, you can send one person to MTA for what they're saying the whole township can use. So, John, do you have any more details or information?
There is the MTA online printout from the website in your packet. The font is pretty small because it did come from the website, but it covers everything from accounting and payroll to ordinance enforcement, meeting township needs, cemetery management, which I don't know that we're in the immediate need for, but it's there if anyone's curious about cemetery management. Something that I have experience with in my past, but you know what they say about cemeteries, right? Everyone's dying to get in.
Mm-hmm.
Some election tips and fundamentals, which obviously would have been maybe a little handier a few months ago as opposed to now, but a laundry list of various types of education. And this would be available to committee members too.
So do I read this right that there are a couple different options? Premium pass looks like is $1,900, and that's for the entire township team. And then $1,400 per person for typically for $1,000 for the entire township team. So I guess if we wanted to, if we saw an excess in one of these, that would be the better one to choose. Otherwise, they look like they're about the same. Get 10 essential courses. Secrets of board, a great board meeting, spending public money, special assessment procedures.
Lynn?
Oh, sorry, I was still reading. Go ahead, Pete.
I'm just gonna make a motion that we enroll Marquette Township into the MTA online subscription program.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Dave. Did you want to make that motion?
I was gonna make the motion, but I'll support Pete's.
All right.
Question,
Yes, Ernie.
is that the $1,900 one, Pete?
Yes,
You think that one?
Okay.
that covers everything. And am I
Yes.
correct?
Yep, that includes everything in all three of the different package options.
Yep. Okay. That seem good to everybody, or any other questions?
I
Then the
have a
hard
question
part-
for John. For John, do we have money set aside for that?
We have a decent amount of unused conference and education budget that has not been used this year that we can allocate specifically to this. So same
Okay.
function, just we're applying it to virtual training instead of in-person training that didn't happen.
Good, thank you.
And the only thing we'll have to do is figure out how, and maybe there is a method on MTA to disseminate all this information and keep it up to date. And if we need, materials that we have to buy or print out or however that works. I didn't delve into it any further other than to see the value of it.
I would assume once we enroll in the program, anyone that has login information on the MTA website should be able to log in and access any of the courses they want at their leisure. And if you don't have login and you are a board member, employee, committee member, we can probably arrange to have that login information created for you through the MTA office.
We'll just have to make sure all our committee members get it too, and, other committees. Pete?
With this, enrollment, is there a nice way of telling them that we expect a little more, involvement about the tax tribune? I think Dave brought it up before that they've been sort of sitting back on their hands a little bit. And I think they have to do more we're handicapped. I don't know what other thing we could do to help.
I think your point is very well made, Pete. They might turn around and say, look, we're already giving you a pretty good deal for what's normally $4,032 per person. We're offering to you for $1,900 for the entire township.
Then
So
do the job to protect the townships.
yeah, I understand your point, but just playing devil's advocate.
I know.
Okay, anything else? Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee LaRue,
Yes.
trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
trustee Marks,
Yes,
trustee Everson,
Yes.
treasurer Johnson,
Yes,
clerk Rotari is yes, and supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, thank you. We need to do at least one more work session before the end of the year to make sure we know. We just kind of glanced over all of our budget information. So the clerk has asked that we do something after the election
Yeah, the
because
week after is probably better for me.
he and Lois are swamped.
Yeah, and we'll be
Fine,
tired.
also.
We're gonna be tired.
There will also be one impact to the budget that gets decided on election day as well. And that is the rec millage. So, if we wait until after the election, we'll know what we need to do with our budget as far as recreation goes.
Okay,
And there is spillover into buildings and grounds from that as well.
true. Okay. So Dave,
Yeah, about the 11th from 1 to 3. It's a Wednesday.
from 1 to 3, that works for me.
I have another agreement at that day on the 11th from 12:30.
Tuesday'd be better if Tuesday's
Okay,
better.
Tuesday works for me.
Tuesday's okay.
Tuesday, 1 to 3.
Yep.
And we can do this by Zoom also. It's a work session. As long as we got our support.
Okay, we've got a DDA meeting that night too, a special meeting. So 1 to 3 budget, not necessarily wrap up, but however you want to word it, Randy, so that
I'm just gonna put budget work session. We can do what we want.
okay. Does that work for everybody then?
yes,
Did we
Yeah,
have a
I will make a motion that we schedule a budget work session for Tuesday. Is that the 10th? Yeah.
Yep.
Tuesday, November 10th, 1 to 3 p.m.
Second.
Okay, roll call?
Clerk Rotari is yes. Trustee LaRue,
Yes.
trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
trustee Everson,
Yes.
trustee Marks,
yes.
treasurer Johnson,
Yes,
and supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. I'll get that posting sometime this week.
question.
Sure.
Now, this work session, is this the last one we're gonna have to have before we have the one in December? Before we move forward with the completion? Is this the last one we're gonna have to have, or do we need another one?
I'm thinking this should be it because we pretty much had consensus on what we want to do. But like John said, follow up after the election for the millage, but we did pretty much generalize everything. We didn't spend a lot of time on the Public Works Department, but I think we're okay with it. So I just like to make sure we're all on the same page. And then we should be good in December.
At the meeting on the 4th, I think we need to just address it to make sure that we have everything taken care of, because the time frame is as much as I hate to say it, we're moving towards December and we have to make those dates as far as the state is concerned. So I want to make sure that we got everything covered in that.
Yeah, we still have the 17th meeting too, Ernie, to do. We got to get that published into the newspaper before December. So
Right. I want to make sure we got the dates right on everything.
yeah, me and John will work on that
Okay.
after the budget work session.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, November 10th. I think we said 11th, 10th. No.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in December. No wonder. Yeah, November 10th, 1, 2, 3. Okay, good deal. Halloween guidelines. Some of this we got from the city, well, probably the whole thing. When Manager Kangas and I meet on Thursdays with some of the other township managers and city officials, we get a lot of this information that we talk about. And everybody's kind of sharing it and changing it and updating it and applying it to themselves. So these are, this is not like an enforceable, we have to do this type thing, but it's a guideline to kind of give people an idea of what to do. I don't know if we need to actually implement it or if you just want to discuss it or kind of whatever you're thinking.
It's more informational than anything, Lynn, just for the residents.
Yeah. Some of the other have actually taken board action and adopted it. So. Dave?
Yeah, I'm not sure why we need to take board action on it if you just want to put it out. It seems kind of, I guess the whole thing seems kind of pointless to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Half the people don't wear masks now. I mean, they're not going to pay attention to what you put out here.
Yeah. Okay.
Then one
Yeah.
good thing about that is I think the change is set up a table outside. I think it makes more sense. Just
Mhm.
table and stand back and just monitor it like that if you want. But
They call that one-way trick or treating.
yeah,
Mhm.
I'm coming to your house, John.
Okay, good. We can move on. Consider adoption of resolution to hold virtual meetings according to Senate Bill 1108 of 2020, so long as a state or local emergency is in effect.
I can take this one real quick. And of course, Attorney Zappa has stated earlier how busy he's been, so we didn't bounce this off of him. You will see in the recommended motion, it would be subject to his review and approval. But I think based on everything we've already heard tonight so far, we've got it pretty close to what should be accurate, assuming the county board does in fact extend their local emergency through the end of 2021, the way they're talking. And that was what manager county, what's Scott Urbish's title anyway, that's what he was suggesting they were considering doing, county administrator, right? Thank you. So if they extend it through the end of 2021, we could continue meeting virtually so long as it made sense. And then if they cancel it early because everyone gets vaccinated or the virus goes away, whatever, then we can return to meeting in person again anyway. So that's what the purpose of this is, to make it official, what the board's intention would be. And I really think we should encourage the committees to do the same thing.
Roger, have you had a chance? Did you?
No, but I am completely comfortable. I've reviewed the legislation. I've reviewed the Supreme Court order and all the health department orders, and I have no qualms that that's a supportable and legal thing to do.
Okay. Who had their hand up? Dave?
Yeah, I think it gives us an option for quite a ways ahead. We could actually phase into this in-person meeting kind of gradually. We could start with the board or committee members being there and hold the public virtually. So it gives you an option to phase into it. I'd be comfortable making a motion as it's presented in the recommended motion if you want.
Support.
Okay, motion and support. Pete?
Did anyone hear that why McBroom voted no. What was his concern?
No, I didn't either. There had to have been something about it.
Yeah, just kind of curious why he voted no. All right, that's all I had.
Anything else?
Well,
have
we
a
don't
mo-
have a resolution in front of us, so we will get one written before the next meeting.
So the motion can be to direct staff to put it together or,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. What, Ernie, were you gonna say something?
No, I'm just chuckling because we're moving forward on it to make sure we got all our bases covered. That's all.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and second.
Yes,
correct.
My B vitamins are slinking, I can tell. Okay, go ahead, roll call.
Trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
trustee Marks,
yes,
trustee Everson,
Yes,
trustee LaRue,
Yes.
treasurer Johnson,
Yes,
clerk retires, yes, and supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. So me and John will get something and we'll put it together for next meeting for formal adoption, and we'll consult with Roger about it, legal review on it.
So remember, the next meeting will be on Wednesday.
Yes,
Confused, put it on your calendars. And don't come up and sit here in front of your computer tonight, unless you're watching the returns. All right, we're down to public comment. Any emails tonight again or yet?
I have none.
Okay, and we have no public. We lost everybody. Any announcements? I bet you that's you, Clerk Rattari.
Yeah, so the issue that trustee LaRue brought up with the resident has been addressed. The clerk's office is open by appointment only. That was the contention with the resident, that they couldn't get in to vote, which is not true. We do have signs on the door and on our website by appointment only. There's a misconception going on right now in Michigan that you can come in and early vote, which is actually absentee voting. It's not where you can walk in and vote using the machine. That's not true. It sounds like on the TV ads you can do that, but it's not the truth. Early voting equals absentee voting. So if you early vote, you can come into the clerk's office by appointment, call our number, we'll come to the door, give you a ballot and receive it. That's where you vote at the clerk's office. Voting at home is by mail. And so we addressed those with that resident, and I did consult with our legal to make sure we were compliance with the current law, and he was fine with what we're doing is fine. And that's where it ended.
So Randy, are they required to vote right there with you then when they come in and give you the ballot?
No, if they want to vote there, they can vote there. If they want to take it home and vote there, they can take it home. We have a drop box available 24/7. They can come in the middle of the night if they want and drop it off. So it's a secure drop box inside the building. So
It's just not mailed to them. They're just coming to pick it up. Otherwise, everything's the same.
yeah, well now timelines have changed. You can no longer get an absentee ballot, I believe, by mail any longer. That timeline, I think, ended yesterday. So if you want to come in now, I mean, we're still doing it, but it's basically guaranteeing that you'll get your ballot on time. Because with the mail system, there's no guarantees. So, if I would encourage residents to drop their application off and make an appointment with us to get your ballot if you need one. We'll try, if you don't, we'll try to get it to you in the mail, but I can't guarantee it'll get there. And speaking of that, the Saturday before the election, the office will be open 8 to 4 for absentee ballot, for getting them and receiving them, and anyone needing to register to vote that day. The Monday before the election is for emergency absentee, you're allowed to come in and get one, but it can't leave the building. You have to vote here. So if we give it to you, you have to vote here.
That's the day before the election.
Correct. And for Saturday, we will have the lobby open, but we will have masks available and such. They'll be in the vestibule or our common area. People can come in there and register to vote or get your absentee ballot. We won't let them into the office area to keep things contained.
Okay. Dan?
And I think it should be said that they cannot pick up a absentee ballot for a spouse. They have to come in person. If they want to get one for a spouse, the spouse has to come in person.
Yeah, the law's written, Dan, where if you and your spouse need an absentee ballot, however, if the husband just comes, shows his ID, he'd get one, but the spouse's has to be mailed.
Correct.
So
I wanted you to say something about that, just so they didn't expect to come in and get one for a spouse and bring it home with them.
yeah, I guess what you need to do is if whoever's coming to get their ballot, come in person, and then you have to show your ID to get one.
Thank you.
Also, election day, we will be open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And I got something to show you guys here on the screen. Can you see that? Most everyone?
Yep.
As of today, the 20th, we have issued I got it highlighted here, 1,620 absentee ballots. And as of today, we got 1,121 back. So that's a pretty good number. Considering the township's got about 3,700 registered voters, that's fairly close to half voting absentee. So it's been quite a adventure trying to get all these ballots out. So, but with Lois and myself and Andra's helped, and Manager Kangas has given us the resources we needed we've been able to handle this task. There's some townships that just have dedicated folks to do this 8 hours a day. It's been quite a task. We're lucky in like the last presidential election, we had 800 total. We're already past that quite a bit. So anyway, we got them out and things are rolling along, and we should be okay.
Dave?
Yeah, Randy, if you received an absentee ballot and you decide you want to come in person and vote, that's not a problem, right? As long as you haven't submitted your absentee ballot.
If you submitted your absentee ballot, unless you spoil it, when you get to the polling place, it's going to say we issued you an absentee ballot and you're just not going to be able to vote. So my recommendation is if for some reason you change your mind on your absentee ballot, call us, we'll spoil it for you. And you can still vote in person, but it's not going to let you vote if you haven't told us to spoil it.
Okay, thanks.
And if you wait till election day, chances are you're not going to be able to spoil it, because I can't guarantee you we have not processed it already. So, and actually I was pretty lenient on that. I think you have only till 10 a.m. the day before to spoil your ballot by law. So.
Thanks for all that information.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's an interesting time. But yeah, if anyone wants to spoil their absentee ballot, please do it Monday before the election by 10 a.m.
Okay, Pete?
Randy, could I ask you maybe a dumb question? Why do they have early voting? I mean,
Well, it's not real early voting. There's a misconception there, Pete. It's really absentee voting. They should have never used the term early voting.
You see on TV, there are people lined up voting.
Yeah, well, each state has different laws and Michigan doesn't have that.
Oh, okay, all right.
our early voting is absentee, so I seen the ads on the computer with the Secretary of State, and they're misconceiving the voters that you can go to the clerk's office and early vote, which you can, but it's absentee voting.
All right, thank you.
Anything else?
No, that's enough.
Okay, any other announcements?
Anyone?
Pardon?
What'd you just say?
Any other announcements?
No.
Okay. How about the manager's report?
You have my written report. Has everyone had a chance to read that?
No, I've seen-
You can see I focused on what was taking up the majority of my time, and you might notice that some of the subjects are very similar to what has taken up a lot of Attorney Zappa's time recently. The whole COVID thing, the Supreme Court decision, how it impacts us, the Open Meetings Act implications. That was Friday at about 5 o'clock when she finally signed that. I didn't get notification that it was signed until I had gotten home that night. So I had been watching for it all day, knowing that it had gone to her, I think, the day or two prior to that. So I'm glad we were able to meet in this format again. I think it just makes so much sense given the numbers in the county currently. And Supervisor Grant and I have been seeing the numbers from the health department's perspective now for going on probably 3 weeks, where they're continuing that upward trend. If we had to put ourselves in a in-person meeting again, I just don't think that that's the ideal way to meet right now. So other than that, I think the meeting has been long enough. Unless there's questions, I will leave you to my written report.
Anything for the manager? It was pretty thorough. There's nothing really to even share from our last, lots of statistics on the last, I've been calling it the super managers meeting, because it's a kind of a culmination of both. And they talked about Senate Bill 1108. And you heard the sheriff say tonight that Mangum Farm was open. So they're kind of using that almost too for some of the COVID stuff, it sounded like, because the jail is so overrun with COVID. From May 15th to August 10th, so just barely 3 months, we had 887 cases. And this last upshoot alone was 893 cases.
That's probably closer to 1,000.
Yeah, kind of doubled it. 40% of the UP is asymptomatic. They're doing 475 tests a day. And the rest you probably saw in the newspaper. Appleton is a hotbed. And actually, one of my questions was, you know, if we have employees who are going to Appleton for medical, especially, do they need to quarantine 14 days when they come back? And he said, no, not really, because they're in the same boat we are. So we're at the point where UP is just about as infectious as, if that's the right word, as Appleton. If you look at the maps, all from Green Bay up, right in Marquette, everything's just red. So that's good news, bad news, I don't know. Randy?
Yeah, I just looked at my handy dandy book here, Lynn. I was wrong. They have until 4 o'clock on the Monday before to spoil their absentee ballot. So you have until 4 o'clock the Monday before Election Day to spoil your ballot. If you do it on Election Day, you're stuck. You're out of luck.
Okay. Ernie?
Question for John. We were scheduled for your past comments as to be open when in that projected open.
The most recent change was extending the office closure through the end of October. I think we probably need to stretch that out at least to the next board meeting and consider each meeting after that, whether or not we're ready to reopen, and base it completely on the COVID numbers. If the trend is not dropping steeply, I don't think we should be exposing our employees to the public yet.
I would be fine saying to the end of the year. I don't think anything's going to happen drastically enough to lessen the problem we have with how infectious everybody is. But Ernie?
I would say extend it to the end of November. And that now you got the new board coming in and everything else, so let them get involved too, but minimum the end of November and that.
That gives us 2 more board meetings to discuss it if we want to extend it further or cut it short if the numbers are looking favorable. I'm not anticipating that the numbers will look favorable for a while, but I think adding another month to where we're currently at will certainly probably put the employees a little bit more at ease. I know they're getting a little bit anxious seeing what all the news reports are, so one safety feature we can put in place or keep in place.
Do you need board action, John, to solidify that for the employees?
If there's a consensus, I will notify them in the morning that that's our plan.
Does that seem all right, everybody? To the end of November?
Fine.
I'd at least say to end of November and then reconsider at that time.
And we can talk about it at the next meeting too.
Well,
Yeah.
people don't realize if we get an exposure here in the office, we could actually shut the office down for 14 days. It could get ugly.
Yeah, we have to function, especially as previous manager Gerard always said, we don't have that depth of staff that we can have 2 or 3 people jump in, if one's gone. Each one kind of knows a little bit of the others, but nobody's a good backup. So
We
Well, then-
definitely
We need to put the information out on our website and blast it out on email so people know where we're at, so.
and we excuse me, we have it on the door, so we can change the date. Or, out in the hall. Pete?
It just seems to spread so fast because here, the prison, who's sort of consolidated down there, there are 516 inmates with 117 staff members who has it. It just,
Yeah. Wildfire. Although I did hear from somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody that got it and got tested and they had a light cold and that was it. So it's not necessarily lethal, for everybody. Everybody's different, but if you got complications, that makes it worse. That's all.
My daughter got it and that's pretty much what she had was cold and flu-like symptoms for about 7 days. And then fatigue, a little bit of fatigue along with it, but now she's fine, but it's going to affect everybody differently.
No, that's the hard part because you don't know.
Right.
Anything else for the manager? Okay, we can review motions.
Okay, the first motion was to approve the consent agenda as presented. That was approved. Second motion was to approve the regular agenda as presented. That was approved. The third motion was excuse trustee Everson from the motion about the hazard pay premium, and that was approved. And then the fourth motion was to approve the hazard pay premium, and that was approved. Fifth motion was to approve the MTA online subscription, and that was approved. Sixth motion was the scheduled budget work session on the 10th of November from 1 to 3. That was approved. And the seventh motion was to direct staff to create a resolution to hold virtual meetings according to the Senate Bill 1108, as long as the state or local emergency is in effect, and that was approved.
Thanks. So for the next meeting, then we will put on the agenda to at least talk about the office closure, make sure we're staying on top of that. But for right now, we'll figure on the 30th of November. Anything else for the agenda we need
You
to?
guys want to see the officer resolutions next agenda also? We don't have to approve them, but just show you for before the budget work session.
Sure.
Okay, I'll make sure it's in the agenda.
We will also have the 2 grant agreements for the recycling carts for the next meeting, as well as the resolution that you agreed to earlier.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot about the resolution already. Okay, and other fine things that come up. Any board member comment? Anything to share? Oh, at the same time, Dave, I think you were quicker.
Yeah, just to let the board know that I guess I was surprised that it wasn't on the agenda this week for that road rehab recommendation. With that being considered, we'll probably end up canceling the road committee meeting on the 4th because there really won't be anything to talk about.
Okay. Well, we knew we had to put 100,000 toward the project. Didn't it just go up to 120 or something, John?
I think our planned funding for road maintenance next year is just under 70,000, 67 maybe.
Yeah, and the road soft shot out an estimate that's going to be around 47 for the crack seal and then a little more for the 2 alternatives. So I guess I thought it was going to be on tonight's agenda for the board to consider to put out for an RFP, but yeah, just letting you know that we'll probably cancel the November 4th meeting because there really won't be anything to talk about if we haven't talked about that.
Okay, let's put that on, John.
Sorry about that. I guess I didn't realize it, but I should have known.
Yeah, I thought you had gotten it from staff. Otherwise, I would have sent you something. But I thought it would have came out of the planning commission from staff. But that's all right. It's not that big of a deal. That's why we did it early.
John was busy this week.
Yeah.
He stayed busy. Pete, what did you have?
2 things on the leaf drop off, Monday through Thursday, 8 to 4, Friday from 8 to 3, and you have to bring them up to the North Country Disposal, Eagle Mill Road, and bring your utility bill with you. And that goes to the end of October. Your DDA meeting, is that a Zoom meeting, Lynn?
Yes.
All right.
It will be. Yep.
Could you send me a link to that?
Yep. We'll send it to the board. In fact, I was going to mention it before, but I don't want to get into the quorum thing, with having us all there. But I was going to say, if anybody wants to, it's a special meeting. Then we're going to really shoot in on lighting because that's about the only thing we're going to be allowed to do. So whatever that costs, or if we have to do a little millage or whatever, trying to home.
I'd like to zoom in on that one.
Okay. Randy?
Again, the township clerk's office is open by appointment only, and that sign is on the door and on our website. The office hours pre-election will be the Saturday, Halloween, October 31st from 8 to 4. We will be open for, the absentee ballots giving and taking, and anyone needing to vote, register to vote. And Monday at 4 o'clock is the last time you can spoil your Monday at 4 o'clock before the election. Monday the 2nd is the last time you can spoil your absentee ballot and get another one here. And polls are open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on election day. And the recent ruling of the higher court was that we will be able to count the ballots that night, and we won't have to wait to count any postmarked by election day.
Yeah, that 2 weeks was kind of crazy.
That would have been crazy.
Okay. Anything else from board members?
Lynn?
Yes,
I'd
sir.
like to just say to Randy, his staff and they're working on this election, he should be commended because it seems like it's going pretty smoothly, and only because everybody's working together on it. I think that's great.
I did offer to help, but I can't because I'm on the ballot. I don't know if the rest of you asked that too, but we can't get involved. It makes sense. I was just trying to help, but
No candidates other than the clerk touches the ballot.
Special. Anything else? It's the last motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second,
Roll call?
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee LaRue,
yes.
trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
trustee Marks,
Yes.
trustee Everson,
Yes.
treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
and supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carried and looks like we got 8:44 PM.
Just flipped over, yep. Okay, we are adjourned.
Good night.
I have a quick question.